Welcome to part B of the lecture on the Ottoman Empire. We will start with the headgear and footgear for men, then we'll go on to women's clothing, some accessories, and some specialty outfits. Headgear. What headgear do they wear? Turbans, of course. Usually the quintessential Ottoman turban had a high red brimless felt cap, as shown in these pictures here, just sitting on top of his head, and then you would wrap linen around it, maybe white cotton or linen, and there's your turban. So it's headgear, but it's not really a hat you put on. It's a hat you make every day. Isn't that fun? If you're important, you will get feathers or cockade, peacock or ostrich, or blue heron. The Sultan down here, you can see with this magnificent high turban, which probably was prefab, so you could put it on every day, and then had a blue heron to show just how important that person really is. And of course, another workman's hat is the fez, adapted from brimless caps, worn by the ancient Romans and the Byzantine, made of felts. It was sort of a badge for civil servants and academicians as they would go about their daily work on tiny tricycles. Just kidding, that's the Shriners. Okay. So anyway, the fez. The kafia, which you see, very, very characteristic today in Arab countries. But basically, it's a scarf headpiece. To keep it in place, you have a strip of cording called the agal. So kafia and agal. Usually a kind of Bedouin, well, as I said, Bedouin background, and which is adapted by the Saudi family today just to show their Bedouin background. A distinctive footwear for the Ottomans was the kufi and the Yemeni, often worn together. The kufi, or singular kuf, was a leather sock boot that had a soft sole. It's similar to the, it could also be similar to the felt footwear we saw earlier, but you would have this on, and then over this you would put this low slipper made of leather felt called the Yemeni. So you can see Yemeni were not pointed, but their distinctive toes fed the myth that Arab shoes were pointed. You can kind of see there. So you see at the top picture, kufi is worn like a sock, and then the Yemeni is the shoe that goes over it. You can say it's sewed to a little point on the toe. Let's go to women's costuming. Also a good deal of layering, since it's important. They remain covered in public. You can see the women's gomlek here is longer, a little higher neckline. We've covered up a lot. This is just the first layer of the shirt. It's a chemise made of sheer cotton or linen. Now, there's going to be plenty over this. I know we said nothing transparent. And this is a little bit you can see here, but it's sort of the undershirt. It is disposable. It has a round neckline. It may have a vertical slit. Closed with 3 or 4 buttons, usually long and usually wide at the wrists. Okay, moving on. They have 2 types of trousers you might see. One is the salver, of course, the harem pants, which are why they call it harem pants. You can see very baggy. But also another type of baggy pants called surwals. But these have straight legs, much like pajama pants. And again, yes, these are sheer and transparent. So sometimes, excuse me, sometimes the Quran's rules are not strictly followed. And this here really, kind of a sheer over length, and then these are the surwal. And then a short fitted jacket called a harka. Buttons open at the top allow the gumlook to show through. Short sleeves rarely extend past the hips. Excuse me, that's the harka itself and not the sleeves. You can see the sleeves just go to the elbow. And then next layer is their own kaftan, long and fitted like the men's garment with buttons to the waist, left open to show the gomlek and harka. So you can see, unlike men's, which have buttons at the top that go to the bottom, these go sometimes all the way up, but just leave enough open to show the harka and the gomlek. Hope that makes sense. On feminine kaftans, they were open at the bottom, but slips overlap, could be pulled back to reveal garment underneath, as you can see in the picture on the right there. You can see the lady on the far right showing her her harem pants, and she's got a slit open here on her kaftan. In winter, a small woolen jacket called a yelek was worn. You can see here it's just kind of a open sewn, sleeveless, elbow length sleeves. So there it is. Yes, the one on the right is smoking a long pipe, in case you were wondering. Now, sleeve variations. You got to have sleeve variations. One of the most popular, angel wing sleeves. You can see here sort of like a pendant sleeve, usually to the elbow, and then it just kind of flops open. You can see on the right this sort of pulled back. Very characteristic of yeleks and hurkas of the period. Now, remember, women cannot go out unless they're covered. So we need a lot more coverage out of doors than men are required. Ain't that something? One of the most characteristic garments is the farase. This long woolen piece dyed in muted colors. Slits at the hips for tucking the hands in, because it's cold, and long sleeves extending past the fingertips. So going outside the harem, this is what you're going to wear. A variation, a very fundamentalist variation of the farase is the chador. Usually for unmarried women. Large open cloak, you can see the wear is covered head to toe. And is very formless, almost always black. Very rare now, except in very fundamentalist countries. Characteristic of that, but this is, well, this is what it is. Here's some more fashionable wear to keep the head covered. The yashmak and the hotos. The yashmak was a veil or set of veils that covered the neck and lower face. The hotos was similar to a fez, a brimless hat that you could attach the yashmak to. If you're an unmarried woman, young unmarried, you have to wear a horsehair face mask. Yes, horsehair with eye called the pesse. So yes, not flattering, not meant to be, not even comfortable. Just don't show your face. For poor women, and who does not have a hotos or a yashmak, you get a simple scarf covering both head and neck. Excuse me for the typo on the slide. This was and still known as the hijab, and is now the go-to head covering for Muslim women. And I think more attractive than the pesse. Just personal opinion. Women's footwear. They wore the kufi Yemeni combination. They also wore low slippers made of felt and silk. And this interesting item, a flat sandal attached to wooden stilts called a kobkob, which is also fun to say. This was usually an interior shoe, but you have your salvar pants, your kaftan, so forth. You don't want to get them dirty, so you put on these stilt shoes. Kind of like the chopin of the Venetian women. You have the kobkob. Makeup. You do not have a lot of makeup in Ottoman Empire. It's not really big at the time in a progressive, moderate Muslim country. We would have kohl used, not only as an eyeliner, but to extend the eyebrows to the temple. So you can see in this woman in the upper right, so it is considered desirable to have a bit of a unibrow and then kohl-lined eyes. Nose piercings are okay. You can see down in the lower one there, that large nose piercing, very good for celebrations. And of course, henna, which was used, which was pretty much made for wedding celebrations, made from henna paste. You start to see ladies in the Harlem using some of it every day, and painted, you can see, in the arabesque style. Now, you do see, I guess some henna artists today will do representations, but if you're really doing henna, you're going to do it arabesque and not put in dragons and unicorns and such. But, c'est la vie. Quickly, some specialty costumes. Janissaries, interesting thing. Janissaries were Christians, usually, who were in the service of the Sultan. They were warriors. They were elite warriors. They dressed in the kaftan. Here you can see these gentlemen have kaftan tucked in to their akiors. Also, this hat helmet called a bork. There, you can see this sort of high-brimmed, stiff or high-crowned, brimless hat with this flap going down the back, which protects your neck from the hot sun of the Saudi area or Middle East area. And then also a bow case. You can see this very distinctive quiver for arrows, called a bow case. Harem girls, I seem to mention this if this comes off as a little, what's the word, lascivious or peekaboo, I apologize. I thought about it, but I decided to include it anyway because harem girls is kind of the basis for the Western belly dancing. And also the way the West looks at harem women in the harem as this sort of, oh, these girls, these young girls who are slaves or wives and just walking around practically naked. So you can see these are Western interpretations, depictions of what life in a seraglio or a harem are like, with these women walking around in bras or low-cut hurkas, dancing, lots of dancing going on. So you see there is this sort of halter top / bra called a choli that was worn over the gomlek, and then you could wear it separately. So you do see that sort of thing. On the left is a painting of the 19th century. You can see that sort of gold choli over the sheer gomlek, and then on the right a more modern interpretation where it's just the choli. But what this will do, the reason I'm pointing it becomes this sort of, this will become the upper top for belly dancers called the Turkish vest. So we can see in a modern iteration here. And then, of course, we get belly dancing, which is sort of this weird hybrid of the harem girl. It was invented by a British music hall producer in the 19th century to kind of sell this exotic sort of lifestyle. So there's that, where that goes, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Examples, we already talked about Aladdin being an example. You know, you can see here, even in the Disney version, she's got a choli on and harem pants. He's got harem pants and his little sepkin jacket without a gomlek. And of course, Othello, usually in a kaftan. You can see, maybe sometimes with a turban, but almost wearing some sort of kaftan, as shown in these two depictions. And that is all we have of the Ottomans. I hope it's enlightening, and I apologize for my missteps in pronunciation if I had any, and thank you. This ends part B of the lecture and the lecture itself. Thank you for listening.